Hi, everyone, and welcome to this session titled Market, Industry, and Competitor Research in the Time of COVID. My name is Sarah Huss, and I am the Business and Entrepreneurship Librarian here on the University Park campus of Penn State. And my role at Penn State is really to help anybody engaged in any sort of entrepreneurial or innovative idea conduct research related to the idea, particularly around the business side of it. So things like researching what the market for a particular product or services, how the industry that product or service sort of falls into is performing, as well as researching potential competitors. So on that note, before I get started with the main content of today's session, I do want to just mention that if you have any questions about what I would talk about today or about anything that you may be working on, whether it's for a class or something that you're doing outside of a class, even if you're a community member, I can definitely help you navigate the wide world of information that's out there at your disposal. So my contact information is on the screen, and I'll also have the same slide up at the end of the session. But definitely feel free to reach out to me. I am happy to help in any way that I can. And if it's something that I can't help with, chances are that I can, send you to either one of my colleagues or to someone who can provide additional assistance as well. So what we're going to talk about in today's session is a little bit of background on looking at market research, on industry research, and competitor research in the era we're sort of living in now. And then I'm going to talk about 4 key areas. So I'm going to start with industry research and then talk about consumer market research, and then market research in the science, technology, and healthcare sectors. And then I'm going to wrap up by talking a little bit about what you can find in terms of competitor research. So to get started, it really feels reductive at this point to say that the world has changed rapidly over the last 2 years. So since COVID changed all of our lives starting in March of 2020 and has continued to change just about everything we do, since then, it has had a tremendous impact on really every aspect of life. Like it feels sort of reductive to say it that way, because it also feels very obvious. Like we've all been living it. A lot of us, most of us were remote for like a year and a half. Like I said, it feels sort of trite too to say that's changed everything. But one of the things that's changed that I can really talk about in my role as the business and entrepreneurship librarian is how it's changed the information landscape around things like industry, market, and competitor research. So what we've seen in a lot of the resources that I frequently recommend that students, faculty, staff, and community members use to do this sort of secondary research. So rather than going out and collecting your own data and having that be an element of your research, which is a really, really important part. That's not really what my focus is. My focus is on the secondary research. So market research reports that, have looked at what the market for a particular type of product or service is, and sort of what the projected market is, and how particular industries are performing, how particular companies are performing. So I deal with that sort of secondary research. One of the things I've seen over the past 2 years is how the information providers that we get the information that I interact with most often have changed how they present information, excuse me, to reflect this rapidly changing environment. So what I wanted to talk about today is how those information providers, so some of them you might be familiar with, we're going to talk about IBISWorld, Mintel, BCC Research, as well as the American Time Use Survey from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and public company 10K reports. So you might be familiar with some of those, but all of those information sources have really shifted over the past 2 years to highlight how the pandemic has affected the topics that they're covering. But before we get into that, I wanted to ask you all to think of some examples of how the market landscape for specific products or services have changed since March of 2020. How has the competitive landscape for companies in a given industry changed? So I have a Padlet here. So I'm going to go to this link, but you can also follow the QR code. And if you just want to, think of a particular product or service or a particular industry that has been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, once you're on this page, you can click on the little plus sign in the corner down here and just add any thoughts you have on how things have shifted. So I will wait a couple minutes and I'll also put, I'll put the link in the QR code back up. There you go. So that might be something, like obviously everybody, I think probably remembers that, point in the pandemic where we were all scrambling to stock up on toilet paper because people were panic buying. And then even if you weren't panic buying, it was like, well, am I going to be able to find it when I need it? Obviously, the market for PPE for N95 masks changed incredibly rapidly. Those are some of the really obvious ones, but you can probably think of other examples of how the pandemic may have affected the market for other products or services. Yeah, exactly. The market for gym equipment has grown tremendously. I'm in my home office right now, and there's a stationary bike about 5 feet away from me at the moment. Thank goodness for virtual backgrounds. Right. Yeah. The supply chain for food and other ingredients, as well as alcohol, has been tremendously affected. Yeah. Good websites for companies. Exactly. Yeah. So what we're seeing here is some of it has been, really direct impacts that you can maybe predict. Some of it has been, sort of secondary to other things that have happened as more business has been conducted online. That's increased the necessity for websites with good user experience and that kind of thing. So I am going to go ahead and move on since this is a short session, but thank you for your input. So I'm going to start off by looking at some industry research in IBIS World. So if you've ever used IBIS World for a class or for research you've been doing, you know that it is a database that covers the performance, the operations, and the outlook for particular industries. So groupings of companies that sell similar products or services. So what I did was I went into a database called ProQuest US Major Dailies, which contains full access to a lot of the major daily newspapers in the US, including the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, I believe the LA Times, the Washington Post, and there's one more that I'm not thinking of at the moment. But I went in and I looked to see if they had been citing any research from sources like IBIS World and like Mintel, which we're going to talk about in a second. And one of the first articles I found was this one talking about the impact that the pandemic has had on B&Bs. And what's talking about is as B&Bs started closing, those houses, large mansion type houses went on the market. And that's what the rest of the article is talking about. But here we see that B&B revenue plunged about 43.7%, and that a large number of B&B establishments closed over the course of the pandemic. So this article was published in September of 2021. So this is roughly the number of B&B establishments that closed between March 2020 and September of 2021. So what I did from there was I went in and looked at the report in IBIS World that was citing. So there are a couple of different ways that you can access a database like IBIS World from the library's website. The one I'm going to show you today is particularly useful as it highlights a lot of the other information resources that the libraries have for entrepreneurship and innovation. So I'm going to scroll down to Research Help and Tools and click on Subject Guides. And I'm going to open up the Business and Economics section and click on Entrepreneurship and Innovation. So all of the resources that I'm going to talk about today are available under the Industries, Markets, and Companies tab. And we're going to start off with this first one here, IBIS World. So while it loads, I'm going to start from this example and track down the report that it's referring to. So I'm going to type in bed and breakfast, and we see that that report, bed and breakfast and hostel accommodations in the US, comes right up. So one of the things that's been interesting for me as a information professional, so might be a little bit more interesting to me than it is to other people, because this is what I do professionally, but it's been this section here, which highlights how the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted the industry. So pretty much right away, I think probably around April of 2020, IBIS World started including this section on just about all of their reports. At the time, it was a way for IBIS to update the reports outside of their normal update cycle. So one of the things to note about IBIS World reports is the date that they were updated is always going to be under the title. And they're typically updated on a yearly basis. Some might be updated a little bit more frequently, like every 6 months or so. Some may be updated a little bit less frequently, like every 18 months or so. But for the most part, these reports are updated every year. So in the beginning, this section was a way for IBIS to acknowledge what was going on, even while the rest of the report sort of stayed the same. As the pandemic has evolved, as we're getting into, for many of these reports, the second update after March of 2020, it's now become a way to point users to the places in the report that discuss the impact of the pandemic, and also highlight what some of those effects are. So we see here that the first point given here is demand for the bed and breakfast and hostel accommodations industry declined in 2020 due to falling travel demand stemming from the pandemic. But industry revenue is expected to sharply increase in 2021 and into 2022. And then it tells you to see the current performance chapter. So right away, it's giving you a sense of what that impact is, but it's also pointing you to where to go next. So current performance is going to be under industry performance. And what the current performance section does is it highlights some of the major trends within the industry. So we see that the industry experienced modest growth, but then it goes into, over the past 5 years, but then it goes into talking about what the particular impacts of the pandemic were. So this has been a really helpful way to get a sense of sort of what was happening in the industry prior to the pandemic, and then what's happening, what happened to the industry during the pandemic, and then what is expected to happen as we move through what's hopefully the end of the pandemic and into the recovery period. So I'm going to close out of here and go on to our next example. So the next resource that we're going to look at is Mintel, which is a consumer market research database. So rather than focusing on how the companies in that market space are performing, it's focusing on consumer preferences for around particular products and services. So we see here that this article, also from the Wall Street Journal, is talking about how consumer behaviors, attitudes, and preferences related to baking changed with the pandemic. I think we all probably remember our social media feeds being flooded with sourdough starter back in March and April of 2020. So we're going to do the same thing with Mintel that we did with IBIS World. I'm going to go ahead and open it up. One thing to note is that these resources do have some limitations on them because they're licensed primarily for educational use. You do sometimes have to agree to these sections that say you won't use them for commercial use. I will also note that these are not available to people who aren't currently formally affiliated with Penn State. So unfortunately, that does include alumni and community members. If that is you and you want to find similar information, a great thing to do is to reach out to me or my colleagues, and we can definitely help you find alternative resources. So I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge that statement. And the report that the Wall Street Journal article was citing is going to fall under Mintel reports. So I'm going to go ahead and search for baking. But one thing I do want to note, so we see Ukraine and inflation, the consumer reaction. So I've noticed that the information providers I work with on a regular basis, so things like IBIS, Mintel, et cetera, are now mirroring the approach that they took to the COVID-19 pandemic, to similarly highlight the effects on industries and markets that are occurring because of the conflict in Ukraine. So I've just started to see that popping up. It's not as ubiquitous as the highlighting the impact of the pandemic is, but I did see just the other day on a aerospace manufacturing report in IBIS that they did have a specific statement on the impact of the Ukraine conflict. So that's something to keep an eye out for as well. I'm going to go ahead and search for baking on a much happier note. And when these reports come up, we're going to see that many of the reports do have this banner here that goes away when you hover over it conveniently, that says includes COVID-19 impact. One thing I do like to highlight for the researchers that I work with is you do want to pay attention to the date that reports were published. So for example, this one was published in March of 2021 and is the report that the Wall Street Journal article was citing. If you were, say, looking at the baking and dessert mixes report from February 2018, you would of course be missing really important context for how the industry has shifted over the last couple of years. But you're going to find much of the same sort of information in these Mintel reports that you saw in IBIS World. So this is the overview of the report. It's going to define what is and is not included in this report. It's also going to offer a little bit of context on COVID-19. And so this report was published a little over a year ago. So sometimes reading these contextual notes can also help situate the report in sort of the moment that it was published, as well as when it was being researched, which will usually be the preceding, 3 to 6 months before it was published. So what we're also going to see here, though, is in most of the reports, Mintel is going to include a section titled Impact of COVID-19 on this particular market space. And they came up with this nice graphic that shows what the minor or positive impacts on the industry are, as well as any moderate impacts or severe impacts that are more negative on the performance of the industry. So we see here that to this point, most of the impacts on this particular market, on the baking and mixes market in the US, has been positive, but Mintel is projecting a small steady decline through 2025 as life gets back to sort of its the same sort of flow that it was prior to the pandemic, which makes sense. If you're home less often, you're probably going to be baking less too. So that is what it looks like in Mintel. There are a couple more things I want to talk about, although I am conscious of the time. So one of the publicly available resources that is available to everyone, it is a information source that comes directly from the federal government, specifically the Bureau of Labor Statistics, is the American Time Use Survey. So this survey talks about how Americans spend their time. They survey a representative sample of US residents to get a sense of how they allocate their time on a day-to-day basis. So one of the things that we're seeing currently noted with the American Time Use Survey is that the data that came from 2020 is incomplete. So because of the pandemic, because they weren't able to have their staff collecting the data in the way that they normally do, there is 2 months of missing data on the 2020 American Time Use Survey. So again, that's just something to be aware of. And we do have the American Time Use Survey linked here on that industries, markets, and competitors page. So again, you want to be looking for any notes, regardless of what resource you're using, to see how the pandemic has affected data collection and has affected the research itself as well. In addition to the consumer market research, we also have market research for other sectors, including science, technology, and healthcare. So in BCC Research, which is a database that is particularly focused on those sectors, we see similar impact notes. So I'll go into that real quick as well. Open this up. I'm going to click on member login to let the database know that I am affiliated with Penn State. And so the report I was looking at here was the Oregon on a Chip Global Markets Report. We'll see that they do have a specific section on the impact of COVID-19, which, like in Mintel, is going to provide context, but it's also going to provide the particular impacts of the pandemic on this market space. Another thing I recommend doing, most of these reports do have a function where you can search for a particular term within the report. So if I search for something like COVID or pandemic, in BCC, it'll highlight exactly where in the report those terms appear. So if I click here, we see that's mostly coming up in the parts of the report that are specifically talking about the lung application for Oregon on a Chip, which I believe is a research tool for seeing how particular drugs or therapies will affect a specific organ. And we see here that's talking about organizations that are doing research in that area. So the final piece is looking at how specific companies are saying that the pandemic has affected their business when you're looking at potential competitors. So I pulled some statements from some company 10K reports. So we have this statement from Tesla's report, which is talking about the effect that suspending their operations at many of their manufacturing facilities impacted their ability to produce their products. We see here from Pepsi that they're talking about seeing a greater shift to e-commerce because of the pandemic and how that might affect some of their strategy going forward. They're talking about potentially building out their e-commerce business and their direct-to-consumer business, which is something that is coming directly from the pandemic as well. And then for 3M, we're seeing that they talk about how the pandemic was positive for some segments of their business, but negative for others. So obviously, COVID-19 brought strong sales in personal protective equipment for 3M, but it did contribute in part to decline in sales in areas like oral care, automotive, and aerospace parts. And these I pulled from a database called Mergent Intellect, which contains access to every public company's 10K report, which is the annual report that public companies file with the Securities and Exchange Commission. So real quick, I'll go ahead and pull up Pepsi's. And then I use the same strategy to find those statements. So I'm going to go to SEC filings and to, when it comes up, I'll be able to filter it down to 10K reports, but I use the Control F command on my keyboard to bring up the find function. This is not a 10K report. I'll filter it down to 10Ks to find where in the report the term COVID-19 appears. So when you have access to tools like that to find where particular terms appear in a report, this is the 10K report. Use those to your advantage to zero in on the parts of the research that you're looking at that deal with the particular issue you're interested in. Okay, so I know that was a lot for a short period of time. So again, if you have any questions, if you need help on any research related to this or anything else, definitely feel free to reach out to me. I'll stick around for a few minutes to answer any questions you have now. Otherwise, I hope to see you at additional Startup Week events and have a great day. Thank you.